Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Rapid Recap on the Inside Nebraska YouTube channel. He is Greg Smith and I'm Zack Carpenter, and today we're coming to you after Nebraska's 14th practice of fall camp. We got, 10 left? 11 left? 11 practices left.
We're getting there, almost to single digits.
Yeah, well, we're dropping down single digits so far. Four single digits named for Nebraska so far, nice. With Jeff Sims, Billy Kemp, Isaac Gifford, and Luke Reimer.
Yep.
And there's, I think, definitely four more, maybe five more, because Ethan Piper was also one of those honorary members, but we digress. Not even close to the point here.
No, but that's all right.
That's all right. That's what we do here. We go mostly unscripted on your Rapid Recap episodes. Today, we had Matt Rhule, new tight ends coach Josh Martin, Thomas Fidone, Nouredin Nouili, and Anthony Grant, all at the mic. And before that, we had an open practice period of about 25 minutes or so, which we have a lot of practice observations on InsideNebraska.com, so you can go and read all of our work from there, from this morning's practice. But just wanted to touch on one or two of them today. I mean, what was the biggest takeaway that you saw from practice?
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with like formations or who was playing where or anything like that. Something that I noticed, and we have talked about this before, about all of the people that are at practice, right? All the support staff, and kind of on our insiders board, this has been talked about as Matt Rhule has built out his, kind of initial staff here in Nebraska, like how much money they're putting into all of that support staff, but that's not actually where I'm going. It's two of the most high profile of those people, Corey Campbell, the head strength coach, and then Omar Hales, the director of player personnel. You have to get the correct title. Both of them out there helping to give water and Gatorade out.
You saw that too.
So really,
I put that in the practice observations. I had no idea where you were going.
Yeah, okay, good.
I'm like, oh, are you going?
And so the reason that stood out to me is it was like, okay, everybody has a purpose, right? And we always talk about that with Rhule, right? Everything has a plan and there's a design behind it. But what I honestly think that was is it really just gives you, for those two guys, Omar and Corey, another way to kind of have touch points with the players, right? To kind of connect with them, because that's a lot of times where guys would come off and either Omar or Corey gave them Gatorade. They kind of joke with them a little bit. Hey, good rep. Give them encouragement. So it's funny because when they see Corey Campbell, it's not just someone that they see in the weight room. He could just walk around at practice yelling at people, right? If he really wanted to. Most strength coaches, to be honest, do that, right? Omar Hales probably could not be there if he wanted to. I thought that was really neat to see that an extension of kind of that brotherhood and everybody kind of working together on that. I don't think you'll see that everywhere.
I'm not going to lie, that's kind of awesome that you picked that out too, because again, I had no idea where you were going with your number one observation, because I threw that in there. It's just a quick 1 or 2 sentence observation. I'm like, not a groundbreaking observation, but still noteworthy or just interesting, kind of stood out, but I didn't know how exactly to word it properly like you just did, of why is this important? It's not like the biggest deal in the world, but it's still noteworthy and important.
But they get to know each other on a different level, and how much Matt Rhule talks about this a lot, about getting to know the people on the team. It's why they kind of, when they did the dorm situation, why they were roomed with guys that weren't in their position room or guys that they wouldn't ordinarily see, why he wanted them playing cards, having meals together, all of that. It all works together for kind of the same purpose, and I think this was just another example of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I feel like I've been saying too much, but from just before Big Ten Media Days all the way up till today, I feel like I keep harping a little too much on this alignment and everyone moving in the same direction, that storyline. But it is, to me, the biggest storyline coming into fall camp, and it's the biggest storyline right now, because that was, in my mind, the number one issue, and in Trev Albert's mind, the number one issue for many years was people moving in different directions, and now they're all sort of aligned with the same goals in mind. But beyond some of the bigger picture stuff like that we mentioned, I mean, today was the first time we actually got to see the true freshmen at practice, because this was the third and final open practice period of fall camp. The first one, the true freshmen, who are not allowed to speak to the media, they're not. Yeah,
that's the rule. Yeah, we should probably say that, because
rule. First practice, they were in the secondary or the second practice period when it was split up. And then so we didn't see them in the second practice period. They were all way over to the side to where
the area we couldn't go.
Legless with incredible Hawkeye vision.
Right.
But today we did catch a glimpse of them. There's Malachi Coleman out there running as a blocker on punt return, and you mentioned Omar Hales. He was over there yelling at Malachi to pretty much get in front of him, get in front of the gunner. And he was yelling that. Malachi did. And then a fellow true freshman, Ethan Nation, fielded the punt cleanly. He was able to make a couple jump cuts and scoot up field. So we saw both of those guys on the field. Ethan Nation, he's the one who's sort of starting to catch some steam. Maybe he's not going to have a breakout true freshman year, but he is starting to stick out.
Yeah, he definitely is. And I noted him a little bit too. I had some photos in our photo gallery of him kind of fielding those punts and running around a little bit. He does, as Matt Rhule, to steal his phrase from today's press conference, looks dynamic out there, right? I like the way that Matt Rhule talks about those guys, though, when he discusses guys like Ethan Nation, because, of course, we're going to ask specifically about those guys. He says, listen, we'll see if he pops right away. There's a lot that has to happen for a true freshman, especially one that arrived in the summer, to be able to go ahead and play, especially to start the season off in Big Ten play, maybe game 6 or 7, like he was talking about some of the wide receivers. Maybe that's when they'll help, but there's no rush to get those guys out on the field. And I thought that was the right way to take things.
Yeah, and I don't want to have us be in danger of. I feel like a lot of the Nebraska media, and us very much included, you hear a name that you don't expect to hear when a coach will mention a guy who's standing out in practice, or Jeff Sims, which he mentioned Ethan Nation when he was asked for individual standouts from Saturday's scrimmage, individual defensive standouts, and don't want to hammer it home too much and hype up a player too much, because I feel like we sometimes get in danger of that. But Ethan Nation, he is catching eyes, and like Greg said, like Rhule said, maybe it's not today, but he's going to be dynamic for us someday.
But that's good, though. Remember, I wrote a story now, it might have been a week ago, what is time? It goes by really fast, about why it's good for you to hear those names, but you just put them in your back pocket. Like sometimes, a couple weeks ago, Matt Rhule mentioned Sam Sledge, right? We haven't heard about him since then. That's not a bad thing necessarily. It just means that he's still developing, right? Like in the future, you're going to need those guys. So hearing about Ethan Nation flashing now actually shows some good things for the future, and maybe it won't be right now, but they're going to need him when the program turns around under Matt Rhule, right?
Yeah, and another true freshman, I'm not going to dive into it too much, is running back Quentin Ives, but I wrote up about him. More thoughts than I thought I had, but the more I just kept just looking at my notebook from practice today, it's just more and more came to my mind about Ives as true freshman running back in E.J. Barthel's room, and you can go read that at InsideNebraska.com under our practice observations. But one more thing before we get out of here was the tight ends and Matt Rhule, Josh Martin, Thomas Fidone meeting with the media today, and Fidone, and you guys caught it, that him and Rhule are sounding a lot alike these days.
Yeah, definitely. The description of Rhule with the way that Thomas describes himself, and we've now heard from him a couple of times. Thomas Fidone, if you were aware of his recruitment, you heard it then as well. He's a guy that holds himself to a high standard. Like it's almost like, he's been good his whole life. He knows he's good, and he has big goals, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think it's really neat that he verbalizes that, because you can't hit something if you don't verbalize it, right? At least in my mind.
He said, I'm never going to be where I need to be. Like that's his mindset. Like I'm never going to be good enough.
And Matt Rhule actually said that he's just like that. He says he's just like that, which is how they, I think, have ended up bonding, right? But even on the flip side of that, Matt Rhule talked about this, and so did Thomas, that you can have that perfectionist in you, and you have those lofty goals, but at the same time, if you have a bad play, don't dwell on it. What's next? That's the phrase, one of the phrases, right? Hashtag what's next. So they say that all the time. Nouredin Nouili talked about that, about how they say that in the huddle to each other.
Did they say 1% better?
No, they said what's next in the huddle is what they say. No. That's only for outside of games and periods.
Right.
That's the overall picture. The detail is what's next. It works, though. It's easy to remember. It's catchy. But Thomas Fidone, if he can forget that one bad play, what's next, move on, and then you can just go from there.
Yeah, and what was interesting, just one final point for me on Fidone and Matt Rhule. In the summer, in June, Fidone did an interview with Jessica Cootie from Huskers Radio Network, and he talked about the fact that he said, me and Coach Rhule have gotten closer than I could have ever imagined. And I think we've just seen that relationship strengthen. And, I mean, it's important for a talent of his caliber, a position that's going to be used as highly in this Marcus Satterfield offense, for that relationship to be there. So I don't know if you had any other points before we get out of here. Josh Martin, we might want to touch on.
Yeah, we did meet Josh Martin, the new tight ends coach, came into that role under kind of unexpected circumstances. We met him, and I think it's my high-level takeaway from that is it's very easy to see why people have high praise for him and seem to really like him. The way that he kind of told stories. He talked about how, and you watch his video on our YouTube channel here, the direct quote about how, he pretended to be a black shirt as a kid when he was playing tackle football. It was a great story. I'm not going to do it justice, but there was a lot there to know how he's bonded with his players and recruits, for that matter, pretty quickly.
Yeah, and you, like Greg said, you can watch the press conference with Josh Martin, Matt Rhule, Anthony Grant, Nouredin Nouili, and Thomas Fidone at the Inside Nebraska YouTube channel. And we have all of those videos and coverage, practice observations at InsideNebraska.com. So you can go and catch all of that today, tomorrow, the rest of the week, until we talk with Tony White, some defensive assistants, and some players on Friday, the next media availability.
Black Shirts Day, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe. No? Do I need to put that in there?
Wow, you do.
Oh, boy, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. My bad.
Well, here's Greg for hype man, all around great guy. And hype man, eternal hype man, Greg Smith. I'm Zack Carpenter, and we'll catch you guys again next time.